The notification appeared at 3:17 p.m., a subtle vibration against the marble conference table in Barcelona. Motion detected. West Wing, studio. I excused myself from the investors, their chatter about Series B funding fading as I stepped into the hall. My security app loaded, and for 3 heartbeats, I couldn't process what I was seeing. Not an intruder. Worse. My wife, Jacinta, stood in the center of my soundproof studio, the Blue Room, with her brother, Kennedy. They weren't checking equipment, they were measuring. Kennedy held a laser measure against the acoustic paneling I'd installed myself, millimeter by millimeter, 8 years ago. Jacinta's voice came through, tinny but clear. "He'll understand once it's done. The nursery needs this square footage more than his hobby does. He hasn't recorded anything in months anyway." Kennedy laughed, that familiar, dismissive chuckle. "It's not like he's actually producing. It's just expensive therapy." "Exactly," Jacinta said, running her hand over the mixing board I'd saved for 2 years to purchase. "We'll tell him after the Barcelona trip. By then, the conversion will be halfway done." I stood in the hallway of a 5-star hotel, 5,800 miles from home, watching my marriage dismantle my sanctuary in real time. Jacinta was right about one thing. I wouldn't make a scene. I would make a reckoning. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from right now, and what time is it? I want to know who's part of our community tonight. I didn't call. I didn't text. Those would be temporary fixes for a foundational fracture. I needed structural demolition. The conference had 3 days remaining. I sent one email to my COO, family emergency, taking everything remote. Then I booked a suite at a different hotel, paid in cash under the business name. I wasn't returning to save my marriage. I was returning to execute an exit strategy. I knew exactly when to strike. For weeks, Kennedy had been teasing his biggest project yet on Instagram, #KennedyRenovates, with promises of a grand reveal this Saturday at noon. He'd even tagged Jacinta, transforming spaces with my brilliant sister. The comments overflowed with heart eye emojis and "can't wait to see." Perfect. They wanted an audience. I'd ensure they had one they'd never forget. The flight from Barcelona to Portland took 11 hours. I didn't spend them grieving. I spent them building my case. The airplane Wi-Fi cost $40. It was the best investment I'd ever made. I opened a fresh document and titled it The Ledger, Emotional and Financial. Then I began the excavation. First layer, financial. I pulled up our shared accounts, the business records, the loans that were never repaid. Kennedy's construction business startup, $85,000. The down payment for his truck to transport materials, $22,000. The endless advances against future profits, $3,000 here, $5,000 there. I created a pivot table. The total glowed on my screen, $217,000 over 6 years. But money was only the surface wound. Second layer, time. I tracked through calendars, emails, text archives. The weekends I'd canceled recording sessions to help Kennedy with his projects. The vacations shortened because family needed us. The 347 days, I counted them, where I'd worked late to cover expenses so Jacinta could work for Kennedy for the experience. Third layer, creative theft. I opened the folder labeled Jay's Ideas. Inside, screenshots. My notebook sketches of furniture designs, now produced by Kennedy's brand. My concept for a modular studio system, patent pending in his name. The melody I'd composed for our anniversary, reworked as the jingle for his renovation show. The plane hit turbulence. I didn't notice. I was deep in the archives of my own betrayal. The final layer, the Blue Room itself. I opened the architectural plans. Our house was 3,200 square feet. The Blue Room was 400. Jacinta had called it my man cave, then my midlife crisis, then my selfish indulgence. She'd never stepped inside during a recording session, Never heard the symphony of silence I'd engineered, the way the room absorbed sound, until all that remained was the pure signal, whether voice or violin or the hum of existence itself. To her, it was wasted space. To Kennedy, it was content. To me, it was the only place where I remembered who I was before I became Jacinta's husband, the funding source, the reliable one. The notification chimed again. New motion. They were bringing in tools. I closed everything, texted my assistant, Marcus, "Need a favor." His reply was instant. "Already on it." Marcus had been trying to warn me for years. "They're taking advantage of your kindness, Linus," he'd say. "One day you'll add it all up." Today was that day. The plane descended through Oregon clouds. I looked at the spreadsheet totals one last time before shutting my laptop. The anger had burned down to something colder, harder, resolve. They wanted to convert my sanctuary into a nursery for a child that didn't exist yet. Jacinta's latest narrative to her followers about starting fresh. But I'd seen her search history left open on our shared iPad. Most lucrative baby influencer niches, sponsorship deals for pregnant creators, converting nursery to content studio. The nursery was never about a child. It was about content, and my blue room was the perfect set. On Saturday, at 11:47 a.m., I parked the rental car 3 houses down from our craftsman-style home, the one I'd purchased before the marriage, with earnings from my first successful app, the one I'd foolishly put in both our names during the honeymoon phase. Through the security app, I watched the performance unfold. Kennedy's van, the one I'd financed, was parked diagonally across our driveway. 2 of his crew were carrying a faux distressed barn door toward the house. Jacinta stood on the porch, directing traffic with the enthusiasm of a film director. She wore the cream-colored linen dress I'd bought her in Paris, the one she said made her feel creative. They'd already removed the soundproof door to the blue room. I could see straight into its heart from the camera in the hallway. My Neumann microphones were stacked carelessly in a cardboard box. My custom acoustic panels leaned against the wall awaiting disposal. In their place, swatches of gray felt, samples of gender-neutral wallpaper, a mocked-up neon sign that read "Little Star's Room." They were halfway through the demolition of my soul. I took a breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The technique I'd taught myself to combat panic attacks during high-pressure investor meetings. Then I opened the passenger seat. Marcus had delivered the package as promised, a professional-grade body cam, discreet and high-resolution. I clipped it to my collar, activated the live stream to a private server, evidence in triplicate. At 11:58, I began walking. Jacinta saw me first. Her smile didn't falter, it just calcified. "Linus, you're back early." She rushed forward, air-kissing each cheek. "Surprise, we're doing something special." Kennedy emerged from the house, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Bro, you made it." He pulled me into a back-slapping hug I didn't return. "We were going to call you after the big reveal." "I bet," I said. The crew had stopped working. 2 young guys I didn't recognize, holding tools I'd paid for. "Come see." Jacinta grabbed my hand, her grip too tight. She pulled me toward the blue room. "We're converting it. I've been planning this for months. It's going to be the perfect nursery." I stepped into what had been my sanctuary. The smell hit me first, the scent of sawdust and drywall instead of aged wood and ozone. My recording equipment was piled in a corner like trash. The Italian glass desk I'd imported was gone. In its place, a cheap IKEA changing table still in its box. "It's more practical," Kennedy said, watching my face. "This room has the best light in the house, wasted on all this stuff." "Stuff?" I repeated.
"My followers are going to love the transformation series," Jacinta said, pulling out her phone. "I've been teasing it for weeks. The journey from sterile studio to loving nursery, the symbolism from solo pursuits to family focus." She was filming me now. I could see my own face on her screen, pale, stunned. This was content to her. My devastation was engagement bait. "Jacinta," I said, my voice strangely calm, "we need to talk, privately." "Anything you can say to me, you can say to family," she said, still filming. "We're a team." "Okay," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out the first folder. "Let's start with the finances." Kennedy's smile slipped. "Not this again, Linus. We agreed." "We agreed to nothing," I said. I opened the folder. "This is a summary of $217,000 in loans and investments to you, Kennedy, over 6 years, with 0 repayment. According to Oregon law, that constitutes fraud when there's no intent to repay." The crew guys exchanged glances. One pulled out his phone. "Put that away," Kennedy snapped. "Why?" I said. "Don't you want witnesses? Or are you only comfortable with an audience you control?" Jacinta lowered her phone. "Linus, this isn't the time. We're in the middle of a criminal act," I finished. "You're destroying property that's partially mine without my consent. That's vandalism, possibly breaking and entering, since I didn't authorize access to my studio." "Our studio," Jacinta corrected, her voice sharp. "Our house." I pulled out the second folder. "Actually, according to the prenuptial agreement you insisted on, and I have the video of you insisting, remember? Assets owned prior to marriage remain separate property. The house was mine. The studio equipment was mine. You wanted that clause to protect your grandmother's jewelry. Funny how principles shift." Her face went very still. "You're being cruel." "No, I'm being accurate." I turned to Kennedy. "The truck, the one you bought with business profits, the bank sent a repossession notice to my address because you used my credit as collateral without my knowledge."
"That's a mistake," Kennedy said, but the sweat on his forehead betrayed him. I pulled out the third folder. Thicker. "This is from my patent attorney. The modular studio system you're marketing, the one you filed a provisional patent for last month, it's derivative of my designs, and I have gated notebooks, CAD files, and witness statements proving I created it 3 years ago." The room was silent now, except for the hum of a power tool someone had left running in another room. "You've been stealing from me for years," I said, looking at Jacinta. "Not just money, time, ideas, peace. You took the quietest parts of me and turned them into content. You took my trust and converted it into capital for your brother." Tears filled her eyes, perfect, symmetrical tears. "I was building a family, a future. You were always hiding in here, away from me. What was I supposed to do?" "Not this," I said. I gestured to the destruction around us. "You didn't want a nursery, you wanted a set. You don't want a child, you want a prop." "That's not true." Her voice broke beautifully. She was performing even now, even for this tiny audience of crew and brother. I saved the hardest for last. 2 weeks ago, I said, you accessed my private cloud storage. You downloaded the audio files labeled Linus Personal. You've been editing them, planning a podcast series called Marriage Raw, using my private journals, my therapy recordings, my grief after my father died. For the first time, genuine shock flashed across her face. "How did you—" "I have better security on my creative files than on my own house," I said, because I knew which needed protection. Kennedy stepped forward. "Listen, Linus, let's not—" "Bank records show a $25,000 deposit from Verve Media to your production company yesterday for authentic relationship content. Was that the advance for my pain?" Jacinta's performance collapsed. The tears dried up. Her face settled into something cold and familiar, the expression she wore during business negotiations. "It's a partnership. I was going to share the royalties."
You were going to monetize my breakdown, I corrected. The body cam on my collar was recording everything. The private server was archiving it. Marcus would be watching from his laptop, ready to send copies to my lawyers. I want you both out of my house, I said. Now. You can't, Kennedy began. I've already filed a restraining order, I said. It's being served as we speak. The police are probably pulling up now. As if on cue, red and blue lights flashed through the front window. Jacinta's composure shattered completely. You called the police? On your wife? On trespassers destroying my property, I said, and on individuals engaged in fraud, intellectual property theft, and emotional abuse. The officers were at the door. I'd emailed them the files an hour ago, the financial records, the security footage, the evidence of the illegal conversion. What happened next unfolded with surreal clarity. Kennedy arrested for fraud over $10,000, a felony. Jacinta cited for vandalism and served with temporary restraining orders. The crew guys giving statements, eager to distance themselves. And through it all, Jacinta's eyes on me, not with love, not with regret, but with pure, undiluted calculation. She was already rewriting the story in her head, casting herself as the victim. As they led Kennedy away in handcuffs, he looked back at me. You'll regret this, Linus. Family doesn't do this to family. We were never family. I was the mark. 3 months later, the Blue Room is quiet again. Not silent, quiet. There's a difference. Silence is absence. Quiet is presence without noise.
The acoustic panels are back on the walls, though I had to repair the damage. The microphones hang in their proper places. The Italian glass desk gleams under custom LED lighting. But something has changed in the room's acoustics. It's not just the physical space that's been restored, it's the metaphysical atmosphere. The vibrations feel cleaner, as if I've sonically cleansed the space of dishonest frequencies. I'm recording again, not for clients, for myself. The podcast is called The Clean Signal. It's about removing noise, emotional, psychological, relational. It has 500,000 downloads in its first month. The irony isn't lost on me. Today's guest is Dr. Amara Chen, a psychologist specializing in coercive control. We're discussing the economics of emotional labor, how some relationships function as extractive operations, mining one person's resources until the vein runs dry. The ledger you describe, Amara says, her voice clear in the pristine acoustics, it's not metaphorical. Victims of emotional exploitation often carry literal, detailed accounts because their reality has been gaslit so thoroughly they need spreadsheets to maintain sanity. I think of my folders, my pivot tables, my timelines. Does the reckoning ever feel like revenge? I ask. Revenge is about harming another. Reckoning is about reclaiming yourself. The difference is in the direction of energy, outward versus inward. After we finish, I make tea, chamomile from the plants I've started growing in what was supposed to be the nursery. I've converted that space, too, into a greenhouse. Life, but on my terms. My phone buzzes. A text from Marcus. Deposition moved to Thursday. Their lawyer wants to settle. Jacinta is fighting the divorce, of course, claiming emotional distress, claiming the prenup was signed under duress, claiming I'm a covert narcissist who orchestrated her breakdown. She started her own podcast, naturally, The Other Side of the Mic. It has respectable numbers. She's always been talented at narrative. But the evidence is overwhelming. The financial forensics show the money trails. The intellectual property case against Kennedy is proceeding. And the audio recordings she stole, I've released them myself, with commentary, preempted her narrative. It's not the kindest move, but as my lawyer said, in war, you don't bring a microphone to a subpoena fight.
The doorbell rings. It's my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, holding a pie. I heard you were back, she says. Her eyes are kind. I always wondered when you'd... When I'd what? When you'd turn up the volume on your own life, she says. That wife of yours talked so much, I worried you'd forgotten how to use your voice. I take the pie. Apple. The smell of cinnamon fills the doorway. After she leaves, I sit at the kitchen island. The house feels different. Not empty, but spacious. There's room for my breath, for my thoughts, for the parts of myself I'd compressed into tiny, manageable packages to fit Jacinta's narrative. I open my laptop. There's an email from a listener. Linus, your episode on the cost of quiet saved me. I've been the silent partner in my brother's business for 12 years. I listened to your spreadsheet method and made my own ledger. The total was $412,000 in unpaid labor. I'm showing it to him tomorrow. Thank you for giving me the language for what I've been carrying. I close my eyes. This is why I rebuilt the Blue Room. Not for revenge, for transmission. For turning my private accounting into public mathematics so others could audit their own lives. The sun shifts through the windows. It catches the edge of a framed photograph I've put on the shelf. My father and me building a treehouse when I was 8. He's holding a level. I'm holding a nail. We're both concentrating in that perfect state of flow where nothing exists but the task and the shared silence. That's what I was trying to recreate in the Blue Room. Not just a recording space, a treehouse for my soul. Jacinta never understood that. To her, space was either functional or wasteful. Love was either visible or absent. Sound was either content or noise. She couldn't comprehend the value of frequencies below the threshold of hearing, the hum of a well-made circuit, the resonance of wood that has found its true placement, the quiet between notes where meaning gathers. My phone buzzes again. This time, it's a notification from the security system. Motion detected. Front gate. I open the app. It's Jacinta. She's standing at the gate holding a box. She looks smaller than I remember, thinner. The camera resolution is good enough that I can see she's been crying. Real tears this time, not symmetrical ones. I consider not answering. The restraining order allows her to collect her things with police supervision, but that's scheduled for next week. Then I see what's in the box. My grandfather's pocket watch, the one I thought I'd lost, the one he gave me when I turned 18, with the inscription, "For measuring what matters." I go to the gate, but don't open it. She looks up, her face bare of makeup. "I found it," she says, "in Kennedy's workshop. He took it, said he was going to use it as a prop for his heritage brand." She pushes the box through the bars. "I'm sorry," she says. The words sound unfamiliar in her mouth, like a language she's only studied theoretically. I take the box. The watch is cool against my fingers. "There's more," she says. "In the car. Things he took. Your first edition Vonnegut. Your hiking journals. Your—" She trails off. Looks at the house, at the window of the Blue Room. "I listened to your podcast," she says. "The episode about acoustic shadows, how some spaces absorb certain frequencies entirely." I wait. "You were talking about our marriage, weren't you?" she says. "How I absorbed your creative frequencies until there was nothing left but the shadow." I'm surprised she understood. She was always more perceptive than she pretended. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she says. "I'm just returning what I can." She turns to leave. "Jacinta." She stops. "The nursery," I say. "Was there ever... Were you actually—" She doesn't turn around. "The doctor said I have endometriosis. Severe. Kennedy said we could use it for content anyway, that the journey would be compelling. The cruelty takes my breath, not just toward me, toward herself. I'm getting help, she says. Therapy. Real therapy, not content therapy. I nod, though she can't see me. She walks to her car, doesn't look back. Back in the Blue Room, I place my grandfather's watch on the mixing board. The second hand moves with a steady, quiet tick, a clean signal in a world of noise.
I put on headphones, open a new audio file, press record. The most dangerous theft isn't of objects or even money. It's of context. It's when someone takes your experiences and edits them into their narrative, when they score your suffering with their soundtrack, when they frame your life as a supporting role in their story. I look at the watch, at its unwavering measurement. Recovery begins when you reclaim the editing room, when you mute their soundtrack, when you look at the raw footage of your own life and decide, this is where the story really starts, not with their inciting incident, but with your decision to direct. Outside, the sunset paints the sky in frequencies of orange and purple, the kind of beauty that can't be captured by a camera, only witnessed. I keep recording. 6 months later, the greenhouse where the nursery was meant to be is overflowing with life. Tomatoes climb trellises, basil perfumes the air, mint spreads with joyful abandon.
Mrs. Gable comes over every Tuesday to help with the pruning. She's taught me which leaves to cut to encourage growth, which stems to sacrifice for the health of the whole plant. Gardening is just editing, she says, snipping a yellowed leaf from a pepper plant. You're removing what doesn't serve the story of growth. My podcast has 1 million monthly listeners. We've started a community, the Clean Signal Collective, where people share their ledgers, their boundaries, their reclaimed frequencies. Jacinta's podcast ended after 23 episodes. She moved to Austin, started a legitimate interior design business. We communicate only through lawyers now, but the last email from her read, "I'm learning to build spaces that don't require someone else's demolition." Kennedy pleaded guilty to fraud, got 3 years probation, restitution. Last I heard, he's working for an actual construction company, taking orders from a foreman who doesn't care about his vision. My parents, who always thought I was too sensitive about the Blue Room, sent a card last week. No apology, but an acknowledgement. We're glad you found your voice. Tonight, I'm recording in the Blue Room, not for the podcast, for myself. I've composed a piece called Frequencies of Release. It's all sustained notes and carefully considered silences. It's not meant for publication. Some creations are just for the creator. Some sanctuaries remain sacred by staying private. As I play the final chord, I notice something in the corner of the room. A spider has built a web between 2 microphone stands. The engineering is flawless, each strand placed with purpose, a masterpiece of architecture created in silence for purely functional reasons, to catch sustenance, to continue living. I don't clear the web. I adjust the microphone placement, work around it. There's room in this blue room for more than one kind of creation, more than one frequency, more than one story. The watch on the mixing board ticks, steady, reliable, measuring what matters. I saved the house, I saved the studio, I saved myself. But the real victory wasn't in the keeping, it was in the remembering that some spaces aren't meant to be converted, some silences aren't meant to be filled, some frequencies are worth protecting at all costs. If you've ever had to rebuild your sanctuary after someone tried to convert it into their content, share this story. You are not alone, and your clean signal is worth fighting for.